Hello YouTube Pipers, it's Double O Pipe here, aka Rick. I have I can never remember, my Medico Ebony sent to me by Paladin Piper. I have put into this thing some Sutliff J4 Burley. I'm going to see what I got here. I don't know if I like it or not. I wasn't crazy about the aroma. Doesn't taste anything like what I thought it would. I'm surprised. I thought it would be harsher than what it is. Well, to start off with, June on the Range, I finished my first book, Luke Short's The Outrider, which was pretty good. It wasn't like the shoot 'em up I thought it would be, but it was interesting. And I have written down here my choices for the People's Choice Award that Flat Cap Piper is in charge of. And I'll read them off here. The first one would be Kentucky Highland Piper. He's very kind to me, I know, and I think that he's a very good person, and I would like to see his channel grow. Then there's Smarty Bob, who cracks me up a lot. He's that close to being at 500, but he's still not over the top, so I'm adding him to my 3. And then Senior Church Warden. We started the challenge together, and I'd like to have him grow his channel some too. And I have another. I know it's only supposed to be 3, but I like this guy too. Mature Photography Guy. I think those 4. Okay, that would be that. And then there is the Favorite Artisan Pipe Maker. And the one I'm going to recommend is London Calling with Simon. I've ordered one of his pipes from the Coronation Collection. I haven't gotten it in the mail yet. But I'm looking forward to getting it. If anybody's curious, it's pipe number 748 that he shipped off to me. And the mail being what it is just hasn't arrived yet. Doggone it. And because I don't know of any other pipe makers, because I'm so new on this thing, he is my one and only suggestion. So to be in this thing, those are my suggestions. And I don't know if we're supposed to write them down or send them off anywhere or just mention them on our VR. But I'm going to leave it at that, hoping that this is what we're supposed to do. Well, this is surprising. Yeah, I like this. I'm surprised. Like I say, it's because of the aroma from the bag. But yeah, I'm okay with this. I was thinking it was going to be like, well, let me tell you the story. Way back in grammar school when I was a young innocent, and it was summer. I'm not sure what, probably around 5th grade, I think. And I was around 11. Most of my friends from the terrace, which was our playground, more or less, the entire area, were gone with their parents on vacation. And this guy had moved in the house behind me just recently. His dad was in the Navy, so he wouldn't be there long. But we started palling around. And he came over. Excuse me. He came over one morning on his bike and said, "What you want to do today?" I said, "I don't know. Let's just ride up to the terrace and see what's going on." So he said, "Tell me something, you got a quarter?" Well, I didn't want to tell him I had a quarter, because that was the quarter I had saved. Now, I used to get an allowance of a quarter a week. And I would save those quarters and have $1 when my mother would go into town and go shopping. She would visit the store she used to work in called Silver's. It was a 5 and dime. And I could buy an arrow for 25 cents. And usually I'd go in buy 3 arrows when we went in and save a quarter so I could get a Coke and a candy bar and some peanuts or something like that. So I always tried to keep a quarter in my pants. So I said, "What you need a quarter for?" He said, "I thought we'd get some cigarettes." And boy, it popped into my mind. Only just recently they had started selling cigarettes. They were solid chocolate, round tubes of chocolate with white paper, just like the cigarettes that Dad used to smoke. I mean the paper, not the cigarette itself. It was different from those candy cigarettes that were just sugar with a red tip on the end. So anyway, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, let's do that. So I said, "Heck yeah, let's go up there and get some of those. I know they got them up at the drugstore." He said, "Yeah, they do." So he took off on his bike, and I used to do it this way because I was a big fan of Roy Rogers. I would run along the side of my bike, get it going, get some momentum going, And then I jump into the saddle without putting my foot on the I was about to say stirrup, but on the pedal. Like I was Roy Rogers jumping up into the saddle of Trigger. Well, I also had playing cards attached to my wheels, so I sounded like a motorcycle. We kids hadn't figured out how to make our bikes sound like horses, so we could try and fake the motorcycle sound with the stiff cards in the spokes. And the faster you go, the louder it was. So I always felt pretty big when I was riding along on my bike with those things just whirring in the spokes. Well, it took us a few minutes. Back then, this 4-lane highway that leads over to Johns Island was just a 2-lane road, back road actually, because rarely did anybody ever drive on this thing, and usually we could just weave from side to side to stay out of the way of the car because there just wasn't that much traffic. So that's what we were doing. We were weaving back and forth. And I said to him, "It's right up there. It's right up there." He said, "I know where it is." So he pulled into the side where the drugstore was, pulled his bike up, leaned it up against the wall. There was a huge plate glass window there that we never put our bikes up against. And I jumped off my bike, came running up and put mine laid it on the side too, and started running into the drugstore to get those chocolate cigarettes. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going inside to get the cigarettes we talked about." He said, "What kind of cigarettes you going to buy in there? They're not going to sell you anything cigarette." I said, "Cigarette? You mean real cigarettes?" He said, "Yeah, come in." So I walked over to where he was, and there was one of these machines on the outside. Anybody could get cigarettes from it, kids included, as long as adults weren't looking. There weren't any adults around, at least outside. He said, "Come over here." So I walked over to where he was, and he said, "Let me hold your quarter." Now I was still thinking, I don't want to spend a quarter on those. What do I want those for? And I told him about smoking that cigar my dad had made me smoke all of. And he said, "Cigarettes aren't like cigars." He said, "Cigarettes are totally different." I said, "You mean they won't make me sick?" He said, "Well, if you're a sissy, it might." Well, I wasn't no sissy. And if it wasn't going to affect me like that cigar did, I said, "All right." I said, "What do I do with my quarter?" He said, "Put it in this slot right here." So I put my quarter in there. He said, "Now, whichever one you want to choose, you just pull that knob right below it, and it'll drop down here, and we can pick it up." Well, I pulled the one on Lucky, but there wasn't any Luckies there. So he said, "Well, choose something else if they don't have Luckies," because my dad smoked Luckies. So, and I saw these bright red packages lined up, and I said, "How about those?" And I pulled it, and they went boom, and one fell down in that area where you could just pick it up. Pale Male, without a filter. Now I felt pretty adult whenever I picked that package up. Squares, felt like a deck of cards, but it was a pack of cigarettes. I mean, this was what the big folks, this was it. So I put it in my shirt pocket up here and felt that, stretch that out. And I felt even more like an adult. So he said, "Come on, let's go. We got to go back to the house now before some adult says put that back or takes it away from us." So we jumped on our bikes. As an adult, walked out and yelled at us for leaning our bikes against the wall of his store. We knew we weren't supposed to do that, but it didn't matter. We did it anyway. So here I was. I had this pack of cigarettes in my pocket up here in my shirt, and I was just pumping those pedals as hard as I could. And those cars just made noise just louder and louder as I pushed harder and harder on myself. And I got there way ahead of him. Got to my house, dropped the bike by the porch, ran into the house, found a box of matches. Not a box, but one of those old those paper matches you have in these, you know what I'm talking about. And he finally got there and he said, "Well, what you gonna do? You gonna open those things or not?" Well, I took that little ribbon, put it around the top edge like that, and this little oblong piece of plastic just came off and fell to the side. And I tore one corner like I'd seen my dad do with his cigarettes, peeled it around, and hit it on my hand like this, like I'd seen my dad do when he opened up a new pack. And 3 cigarettes slid out just far enough where you could pick them up. And I put the pack in his face, and he pulled one out, and I pulled one out, put it back in my pocket, feeling like I was big stuff. I owned my own pack of cigarettes, real cigarettes, not those chocolate ones. He said, "You gonna light it?" I said, "Yeah, just give me a minute." And I took that match off and tried to strike it, and it just wouldn't strike because it was one of those paper matches and didn't have the strength of a wood match. So he said, "Give me those things." And he took one off, put his thumb on the thing and pulled it from beneath his thumb, and it caught. I said, "How'd you do that?" He said, "I'll show you in a minute." He said, and he lit his cigarette, pulled in a huge drag of smoke, and then just blew it out through his nose. He said, "Let me show you how to light it." He put that out, and he got another one he showed me. Put that out and said, "Here, try it." So I pulled one off. I thought I burned my thumb, but I didn't. Pulled it and it struck. So from that day forth, I knew how to light one of those paper matches. Excuse me. I didn't realize I'd be striking wood matches so often later in life. So anyway, being the dummy that I was, because with that cigar I never inhaled it until my dad made me. I didn't realize that you had to inhale cigarettes. I thought the same. So anyway, I put it in my mouth, pulled it out, spit tobacco out, put it back in my mouth, because that's what Dad always did. And I held... I had done all that before I lit the match. And then I held that match up to it and lit the end of it, threw the match down on the ground, pulled the cigarette from my mouth and went, just like that. That was big stuff. And he said, "You ain't smoking that cigarette." I said, "Well, what am I doing if I ain't smoking this cigarette? I'm pulling smoke out. I'm blowing smoke out." He said, "Let me show you something. This is how you smoke a cigarette." And he took it, put it in his mouth, pulled it down so that that red end went, sucked that stuff in, held it for a second, and then blew it out his nose again. I said, how do you do that? He said, you just got to pull it into your lungs, breathe it into your lungs through your mouth. So I wanted to be as tough as he was, so I did it. First time I did it, I sucked it in, and I just started coughing and hacking and hacking and coughing. And he was a laughing, and I was a coughing. He said, try it again, it gets better. And I did it again, as hard as I could. And boy, it was like a spasm. I just started coughing and coughing and coughing. And he was a laughing and laughing. He said, keep trying. It gets so you don't feel that coughing. He said, pull in a heavy drag this time. So I did just like he did. Just sucked as hard as I could, trying to hold back the cough as I was doing that. And then it happened. I turned green, my stomach started churning, and that spasm of coughing started. And I coughed and I coughed, and my stomach just lurched upward, and everything that I had eaten that morning came up all over me, the grass. And I just slumped to my knees, put my hands down. They got all in that mess. And I was just dry heaving for the next, 5 minutes. Well, my pal there, he got tired of watching me do that, because he couldn't laugh any longer, and he just walked on off home, got on his bike and left. And there I was, all in my own sick. Feeling just, I can't describe. You know, because you went through it yourselves. Yeah, sick as a dog. When I could finally stand, I got up and walked inside and went, well, before I did that, I pulled the package out and looked at it real hard. And I said, no wonder this package is red, because the devil made this. And I just commenced to tearing up all those cigarettes. There were, 18 more cigarettes in there. And I just ripped them all to shreds and threw them back in the weeds behind the house. That night when my dad came home, he asked my mother, what's wrong with him? And she explained to him, because I had told her what I had done. And he came back and he said, what'd you tear those cigarettes up for, boy? I could have smoked those. Oh, Lord. And that's what I was expecting this to taste like those cigarettes tasted like back then. This tastes pretty good. I like it. Yes. Like I say, once again, it's got a pleasant taste and it rolls across the tongue real nice. Doesn't sting too much whenever you retrohale. Some of them do. Some of them sting like crazy. So that's my first try of the Burley on its own. I'm okay with it. I was okay with the Virginia yesterday too. Well, so much for my early days of smoking and so much for my latter days of smoking. I hope you're all doing well. I hope your day is as pretty as this one is, because the sun came out and we got a nice breeze, which means all that water that came down yesterday has been evaporating off, thank the good Lord. My place, like I've told you before, floods. And we had a high tide 2 days ago. And when I say high tide, I mean it came up so that it was ankle deep under my carport. Front lawn was a lake. We didn't used to have anything like that unless there was a hurricane that came through. But these days, on occasion, the tide comes up so high that it floods. And I mean, ankle deep. I had to buy some, not galoshes, but some rubber boots so I could walk in my own yard whenever that happens. Front yard is still too sopping wet to be mowed, though I haven't thought about mowing. But y'all aren't interested in my problems, are you? Okay, folks, I hope everybody's fine. Hope you have a good day. Well, I hope your day has gone well. And I hope to talk to you again soon. God bless you all.